Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here for an early look breakdown of the Week 6 main slate on Draftkings. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name is DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports, daily fantasy sports slates. Before we get into the video, I do want to say thank you guys again for all the support on the YouTube videos, on the live streams, and on Twitter. It is greatly appreciated. The easiest way to support me, with all the content being free, is just leave a like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. I will always be live streaming for these main sites at least an hour before lock on my YouTube channel, going over everything. Also, if you guys cannot watch the videos, I do upload on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below. It is just the DK DFS show. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So before we talk about players and their prices, let's take a look back at my lineup here from Week 5. In Week 5, sometimes single entry is great. Other times you have to make really hard decisions. And I was going back and forth with my Raiders-Chiefs stack and Giants-Cowboys stack. And, it was Jones or Derek Carr for me. That's where I was going. I was spending down at quarterback. I had my original lineup was the Chiefs and Raiders stack with Carr, Waller, Kelsey. Mentioned that playing both tight ends together. And Tyreek Hill, and I went the other way. So, yeah, it's really unfortunate, but like I said, it's when you only have one lineup, you got to make tough calls like that. Unfortunately, I made the wrong call. The Giants still scored 34 points, so it's just unfortunate. Daniel Jones had no passing touchdowns. He did have one called back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire also had a touchdown called back. I know it was in a different game. Then I played Tate and Ingram. Ingram had a touchdown called back. So, yeah, I mean, I was playing riskier for sure, right? Because I knew Slayton was going to be popular for Giants. He was obviously, the cash play. I wanted to get a little bit different. I went Tate Ingram to kind of differentiate myself. It didn't work out. Zacchaeus as well was, a really popular value play. I have no issue with that, though. He played 97% of snaps in a great matchup. I'm perfectly fine with that play, and he was super popular for a reason. The running backs I was never changing. I looked at the slate last week. And literally in 2 minutes, I knew the running backs I was playing. It was Zeke, Davis, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I just got a little bit unlucky, right? Got a touchdown call back, but yeah, I had the Ravens D in there, which was good, but it's just unfortunate because my original lineup with the Raiders-Chiefs stack was in at least the top 1%. It would have made it a really good day, but again, that's the pains sometimes of single entry. You got to make tough decisions like that, and in this one, it didn't work out for me. So that's a look back. Again, I only play GPPs, play a little bit lighter on the main slate. This is definitely not a cash lineup, right? But I was willing to take some risks. Yeah, that's a look back for me. So let's talk about Week 6 now. And before I guess we talk about players, the prices, let's go over some of the Vegas numbers. We have Falcons, Vikings, 55 over/under. The Vikings are currently 3.5-point favorites. We have the Ravens, Eagles is a 47.5 over/under. Ravens are 8-point favorites. Bears and Panthers is a 44.5 over/under. The Carolina Panthers are 3-point favorites. Bengals, Colts 46.5 over/under. The Colts are 8-point favorites. Browns, Steelers, the 51 over/under. The Steelers are 3.5-point favorites. Lions, Jags, a 54.5 over/under. The Lions are 3.5-point favorites. Washington and the Giants, a 43 over/under. Giants are 3-point favorites. Jets, Dolphins, 47.5 over/under. The Dolphins are 8.5-point favorites. We did just get news too of Le'Veon. The Jets released Le'Veon. And then Packers, Bucks, 54 over/under. The Packers are 2.5-point favorites. So that's what we got in the main slate as far as Vegas odds. So as always, we'll start with quarterback today. I have Lamar at the top. Is that kind of a quiet start to the year? 27, 17, 15, 26, and 14 fantasy points in his first 5 games. You would expect a little bit more from Lamar. And we had a surprising only 2 carries and 3 yards last game. Now, it's pretty much because they just were off to a big lead the entire game and were just running the football. So, yeah, that's kind of why he didn't do a whole lot on the ground. 7.7K is a fair price for him. It's a mediocre matchup. I definitely think he's going to have more rushing yards this game. Always has a higher floor because of that. I don't think the ownership's going to be super high in him for this slate. So Lamar's always in play in both formats, in my opinion. Aaron Rodgers is at 7.5 going up against Tampa Bay. He has had a really good start to the year, but the thing is, this is Tampa Bay is pretty, not an amazing defense, but they're pretty good against the pass, or they're fifth against the pass. I don't know. It's it feels a little bit pricey for an Aaron Rodgers. I know he's been playing amazing, but it feels just a little bit expensive for him. Deshaun Watson's at 7K going up against Tennessee. Last couple weeks he started to pick it up after a slow start. 300 yards the last couple of games, 23 and 29 fantasy points for Deshaun Watson. The matchup's pretty solid here against Tennessee, even though they are playing actually pretty well against Buffalo tonight in that Tuesday night game. But yeah, I think the price is very, very fair in Deshaun Watson. Definitely someone I'm looking to as a spend up. Big Ben at 6.7 is fine. I'm not overly excited about that price for him. Matt Ryan is just suited for GPPs. People try to play him in cash, but he's just a guy that is very up and down. Atlanta is a pass-first team, but it's hard to really recommend him in cash games if you just look at the last 3 games. Now, this is a pretty good spot and definitely a game-stackable game, right? This is one of the higher over-unders, 55. So I'm perfectly fine going to Matt Ryan in GPPs, right? He's got Ridley. He's got possibly Julio, some other targets as well. So the targets are there. Matt Ryan is always in play for GPPs. Brady at 6.5. Again, I think more suited for GPPs. Has had over 40 passing or 40 pass attempts the last couple of games, which is pretty good to see. In Green Bay, not amazing defensively. So yeah, I think Brady's a decent play there for tournaments. Cam Newton, we'll see. He might be eligible to return, so got to keep an eye on this. If he does play, I actually think he makes for a pretty decent play here in the mid-range. Guy that's been, his floor is somewhat high because he's been doing more on the ground this year. So we'll see if he's available to play. Both quarterbacks in Detroit and Jacksonville I think are okay in the mid-range. Minshew, Stafford. This is another game that is on the higher end as far as over-under, right? 54.5. Neither defense is good here. So I think both Minshew and Stafford are fine plays in the mid-range. If you want to go to either of them in cash, I think it's okay. Just because, again, both defenses really do struggle. Then we get to Kirk Cousins against Atlanta. He's yet to have a 300-yard passing game, but this could be where it is. This could be where he goes for over 300. And we have Dalvin Cook most likely out. So maybe they do rely on, Kirk Cousins a bit more. But, they do have Madison's a really, really good backup, so I think he will get still a healthy dose of carries. But, yeah, 6.1K, this type of matchup against Atlanta. I think Kirk Cousins is another one of those guys, like Minshew, like Stafford, are definitely playable in the mid-range in both formats. Fitzpatrick at 5.9 going up against the Jets. Well, look at Ryan Fitzpatrick's fantasy points. The last 4 games, 27, 25, 26, and 30 fantasy points. And that last 350-yard game was against San Francisco. Now he gets the Jets. So, Fitzpatrick, I think you can put him in the same territory, honestly, as Cousins, as Stafford, as Minshew, as these mid to cheaper quarterback plays that I have interest in. Bridgewater against Chicago, I'm not overly excited about targeting players against the Bears. I'm just never going to play Philip Rivers. Tannehill at 5.9 is another guy that's played a really good matchup here against Houston. He's a guy that can get it done a bit on the ground. We actually saw him run one in tonight in the first half. The downside with Tannehill is Tennessee is a run-first team with Derrick Henry. But if they fall behind here, like Tannehill, and he's forced to air it out, I could see him having a pretty good day for his price. So, yeah, there's actually a lot of plays in this low 6K to high 5K range for quarterbacks that look pretty decent on this slate. Don't hate Nick Foles at 5.8. I'm probably not going to get to Baker. I'm not going to get to Wentz against Baltimore, who has struggled. Burrow against the Colts, I'll pass. Jones at 5.4. I tried to do it last week. I took the risk. Again, it's a good matchup. I still think he's playable, but nothing I can really recommend with confidence there. Drew Lock possibly is back, but wouldn't be overly excited about playing him against the Patriots, and that's really about it for quarterback. So, yeah, quarterback. We'll talk about running back too, but I don't really think there's a lot of standout plays. Like Lamar at the top is always in play. Deshaun at 7K, I think looks pretty decent. And then you have a group in like this mid to cheaper range of like Minshew, Stafford, Cousins, Fitzpatrick, Tannehill that I think are all playable here. Let's move on to running back. So, yeah, normally, when I go to running back, on these slates, I have a good idea of who I'm going to get to. On this one, at least right now, I'm still like a little bit undecided. The last slide I told you guys, right, it was Edwards-Helaire, it was Mike Davis, and it was Zeke. Like I knew it right away. I was playing those guys all week. This one is not so much. Like I'm a little bit undecided on what exactly I want to do. So let's talk about it, right? Still, McCaffrey looks like he's going to be out. He's actually eligible, I think, to return this week, but doesn't look like he's going to be available yet. Dalvin Cook, again, we had the big news. He expected to miss, or isn't expected to play against, in a good matchup there against Atlanta. So Madison, DraftKings did a really good job pricing him up to 7-2 because if they left him like 4-5 or whatever he was, the last slate, he was, I guess, the flat man 4K. He would have been like 100% owned. Played well when Cook went down for 20 carries, over 100 yards. He's a good running back. He is. And he's a good pass-catching back. I think he gets, the majority of the work here. And it's a really good matchup. So, yeah, I think Madison is playable. I don't know if a lot of people will get to him just because of the price, but I still think he's playable. Aaron Jones at 7-6. The issue I have with Aaron Jones is Jamal Williams, right? They still want to give carries to Jamal Williams. So, like Aaron Jones is never going to be like a 25 to 30 carry running back. Like he's probably capped at around mid-teens in carries with obviously, he's a good pass-catching back. But that is the downside. Also, we have Devontae Adams probably coming back, which I think does take a slight hit to Aaron Jones. And it doesn't affect him too much, but maybe a little bit. So, yeah, those are the downsides with Jones. I mean, he's been good. 48, 16, 22 fantasy points the last 3 games. If you want to continue to ride this Packers offense, maybe you want to go Aaron Rodgers, pair him with Devontae, or again, go to Aaron Jones. I don't really have, strong, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't think I'm going to prioritize Aaron Jones. Derrick Henry, this one's tricky because I don't really like playing Derrick Henry, but the price is pretty appealing. He's just a guy that's not involved in the passing game. So, yeah, this one's, again, I am a little bit undecided here. I think he is fringe playable in cash games just because of the amount of work that he gets. And if they are playing from ahead here, he'll probably push for close to 30 carries. The issue is if the Titans fall behind early, do they phase him out a little bit? So those are the worries there with Derrick Henry. Talked about Madison already. James Conner at 7-1, I think, is a pretty decent play in the mid-range. He's a guy that, we're probably going to get 15 to 20-ish carries. He's a decent, pass-catching back as well. The matchup against Cleveland's fair. So, yeah, again, James Conner is one of those guys I'm fine with. I think he's a decent play. Doesn't really stand out, but if you landed him, more than okay. Mike Davis at 7K. I actually have interest in Mike Davis. I know it's not a good matchup, but it's just hard to argue what he's doing, right? Because it's just the receiving work, right? 8, 9, 6, and 10 targets. So sure, the matchup isn't great here against Chicago, but his floor is definitely high because of those targets. So I still think Mike Davis is playable here. Kareem Hunt at 6'9". Another tricky one, right? Because Pittsburgh is pretty good defensively, but no Nick Chubb. He saw 20 carries last week, 3 catches and 4 targets. The workload is going to go up a bit for him. 6.9K. He's a very, very similar play to Mike Davis, in my opinion, right? Both are, getting, pretty healthy a workload, but both are not in the best spots. So, are you a guy that's are you really prioritizing usage, or are you a guy that's really wants the good matchup, right? Because Davis, Hunt, we know they're going to get a lot of work, but it's not really the best matchup. Now, James Robinson at 6'8", I actually think looks like a really solid play here. He had a subpar week last week, only 13 carries, 48 yards, 5 catches and 7 targets. He's just a guy that is, right now, a do-it-all back for Jacksonville. Like, sure, they'll bring in Chris Thompson here and there and pass down work, but they are targeting James Robinson a lot, and Detroit is atrocious defensively. Yes, I'm a Lions fan, so I know, but They are not very good defensively here. So I think James Robinson is a play that in the mid-range I'm definitely considering. Miles Sanders is kind of the same thing, right, with Kareem Hunt, with Mike Davis. They're workhorse backs, but this is not a really good matchup here against Baltimore. So again, are you prioritizing the matchup, or are you prioritizing, the workload? Jonathan Taylor at 6'4". It's just, he's really not getting a ton of work, right? 13, 17, 12 carries. Like, Philip Rivers does like going to his running backs, but only 1 and 3 targets the last few weeks. Yeah, I'm not overly excited. I think he's still in play for GPPs. Again, good offensive line. Colts like running the ball, but I'm not going to prioritize him either. Gurley at 6'3". I think the ownership will be up after the last game. Did have 14 carries over 100 yards. Looked pretty good and got targeted more. Something we haven't really seen a whole lot from Gurley this season is 4 catches on 5 targets. And this is a game that you're going to want exposure to. It's, the highest over under right now of the week. Price did jump, though, and I don't know. This one's another tricky one, right? I think like Gurley's in play here, but I still don't feel like amazing plugging him into my lineup here at this price for the reason of I don't know if he's going to continue to get like 4 catches every week, right? Because previous weeks, 2, 0, 1, 1 catches. So, again, kind of almost similar play to Derrick Henry, and not a guy that's going to get a ton of work through the air, at least from what we've seen this year. Mixon, again, I'm repeating myself a lot, but he's going to get a lot of work. Not a good matchup against the Colts, right? He saw 24 carries when they were behind big time there against Baltimore. Also had 6 catches and 8 targets. That's good to see. Downside, matchup. So there's a lot of these guys where the workload's going to be there, but the matchup's not great, right? Davis, Hunt, Sanders, Joe Mixon. Ronald Jones is at 6K. If Leonard Fournette is out, which looks like he's not, it looks like Fournette's going to be available, but we'll see. If Fournette is out, then I really like Ronald Jones at 6K, who saw a majority of the work there last week against Chicago. 17 carries over 100 yards, 3 catches and 5 targets. But if Fournette is back in the mix, then I'm going to pump the brakes. So this play right now is strictly dependent on whether or not Fournette is able to go. Melvin Gordon against the Patriots. Patriots have been good defensively. Again, kind of the same thing, right? The workload will probably be there, but not a great matchup. Now we have David Montgomery at 5'8". Sure, hasn't done a whole lot on the ground the last couple weeks, right? 10 carries, 27 yards, 10 carries, 29 yards. The thing that I really like to see, targets. 6, 8 targets. And this is a good matchup here, against Carolina. David Montgomery is playing a majority of the game with no Tariq Cohen. He's getting targeted a bunch. So I have interest in Montgomery as a cheaper running back play. Normally he's a guy that I just never really get to because of Cohen. But again, he is getting a majority of the work now at running back. So yeah, I do kind of like David Montgomery there at that price. Antonio Gibson at 5'5". It's playable, but I think more suited for GPPs. A good pass-catching back, which does raise his floor, and the matchup solid here against the Giants. Myles Gaskin at 5'4", I do kind of like. This matchup is pretty solid here against the Jets. He's getting a good amount of work, right? 22, 10, and 16 carries with 5, 4, and 5 targets the last 3 games. This Dolphins offense has looked pretty good last few weeks, so Myles Gaskin as a cheaper play, I think it's in consideration, both formats. David Johnson at 5'4", almost had 100 yards in the ground last game, 2 catches and 4 targets. So the issue with him is they have Duke Johnson now, so he's not getting, he's not getting the true workhorse. But 5.4K makes him, more suited, I think, for GPPs. Again, we did just get the news that Le'Veon is now a free agent, so they obviously don't play him. Devontae Freeman at 4.9 in the spot here against Washington, I think looks decent. Had 60 yards on the ground against Dallas, 2 catches and 3 targets, and I think more suited for GPPs, but at least a playable back. And that's it. Like, Frank Gore is the min price. They love giving him carries for some reason. I don't know why, but I still don't know if I could go to him. Maybe they give Preen more work, but I don't know. We'll see with the Jets backfield. Maybe something later in the week. becomes more viable. But right now, I don't think I'm going to pull the trigger on either of those Jets running backs, even with no Le'Veon. So I think that really wraps up for running back. And as you can tell, right, there's no real standout play, in my opinion, for running back. Like, I'm still undecided right now on what I'm going to do. I'm going to mess with roster builds. Obviously, again, it's early in the week. I'll have a final look video up too, which I'll go over more things, with injury news and stuff like that. But yeah, right now, running back is a little bit tricky. Let's talk about wide receiver. So Devontae Adams at 8K. Looks like he's going to be back this week. And, the floor is really high on him just because he's a target machine. The downside is the hamstring injuries. We've seen players react to hamstring injuries. Right, Julio was it last week. A couple other players have done it too. So that's always a concern, and you feel like a little bit uneasy because he's come back from the hamstring injury. But I think the floor is pretty high with him due to the targets, and the ceiling is really, really high as well. Calvin Ridley's at 7-8. Great matchup against Minnesota, who has really, really struggled to defend the pass. Julio's status right now is up in the air. If Julio's out, I think that's a slight boost to Ridley. So 8 catches, 10 targets, over 100 yards. He's at over 100 yards the last 3 games. Again, the price is coming up, so it's not like we're getting him at a discount. But matchup and possibility of no Julio makes Ridley definitely playable to spend up. I do like Thielen too at 7-3. In this game, I think it's definitely game stackable. 10 and 13 targets last couple games in Atlanta is terrible defensively. So, yeah, I do like Thielen here. Again, elevated price, but I think it's for a good reason. Allen Robinson at 7K. Well, the really good thing with him is just the targets, right? 9, 13, 10, 16 targets. Matchup's pretty solid here against Carolina. I've been stressing that all year. Nick Foles, coming to play quarterback has helped Robinson. So, I think he's definitely someone that's in play as a spend-up wide receiver. Let's see, both Tampa Bay receivers with Mike Evans, with Godwin, are in play here. If Godwin does play at 6'4", I like the price a little bit better on him. And kind of same thing, though, would feel a little bit uneasy there with the hamstring injury. Mike Evans has also been banged up, too. Both the Tampa Bay receivers have been struggling with injuries. I'm always down with Will Fuller and GPPs to pair him with Watson. Right, he's a big play guy. He's had a touchdown in each of the last 3 weeks. Juju at that price at 6'6", I just think I prefer, Deontay Johnson, possibly, if he does play. If not, you can look to Claypool, but he's going to be really over-owned at the last game. Other options, let's see. I think Kenny Galladay at 6.2K looks like a nice price for him in the mid-range. 7 and 8 targets the first couple games. He is, Detroit's #1 receiver, and it's a really good matchup here against the Jags defensively. So, yeah, I think Galladay at that price looks like a pretty nice play. Crowder's had a really nice start to the year in the games he's played. 13, 10, and 10 targets. Over 100 yards, too, in his 3 games he's played. And the last game was with Flacco. I was a little bit hesitant because Darnold loves going to the slot receiver, but we saw Flacco go to him, too. So it's hard to argue what Jameson Crowder is doing right now. Justin Jefferson at 6K. If you can't get to Thielen and you want a piece of this Vikings offense, I think Justin Jefferson is definitely in play. 9, 5, and 5 targets last 3 weeks, and great matchup. So, yeah, I have Anderson Jefferson. I do feel a little bit safer going to Thielen, but if you can't get to him and you want a piece of this Minnesota passing attack, Justin Jefferson's your guy. Let's see, A.J. Brown at 5'6". I don't mind the pairing with him and Tannehill. We'll see on the availability right of guys like Corey Davis, Humphreys. If they're out again, A.J. Brown is their clear #1 guy. Slayton had a nice week last week at 5'4". 7, 7, 11 targets the last 3 weeks. Is a good matchup. So I think Slayton is someone as a cheap guy you can consider. Chenault, another guy, had a really, really nice week last week. 8 targets, 7 catches. Again, good matchup. Price did come up, though, almost $1,000. Claypool, I know, right? 7 catches, 11 targets, 4 touchdowns overall, 45 fantasy points last game. But let's pump the brakes a bit, right? Deontay Johnson got injured, definitely helped Claypool. We'll see, right? If Johnson's out, I think Claypool is definitely in play, but he's going to be over-owned after that last week. I mentioned liking Brandon Cooks and GPP, so he let a lot of people down last week. Well, he bounced back in a huge way after he was chalking against Minnesota, against Jacksonville. 8 catches, 12 targets, 161 yards, and a touchdown. The price did jump 1,000, so it's not like we're getting him at a discount. But I still have interest in Cooks. I think he's definitely playable as the number 2 receiver there for Houston in a pretty decent matchup. Again, Johnson has actually left the game a couple times now, but dealing with injuries, we'll see if he's available later in the week. Cheaper wide receivers, like Fulgham had an amazing week. Again, we got to keep an eye on the availability of Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey. If they're both available, then I don't really want to go to Fulgham. Cheaper wide receivers, again, nothing really catches my eye right now, but there's definitely some stuff that can open up later in the week. So we'll go over that more, I guess, in my final. Oh, I guess I do want to mention one guy. It is Zacchaeus, right? He's 3.2K. He was chalk last week. He busted. I don't think it was a bad play, though. Go over to snap counts, right? He played 97% of the snaps with no Julio Jones. If Julio Jones is out, I am fine going back to Zacchaeus almost mid-price. Previous 2 games, 4 catches on 6 targets, 8 catches on 9 targets. So sure, right, he busted when he was chalk, but I think he's still playable if Julio Jones is out. Again, Raymond, possibly, if those Tennessee receivers are out, could be evaluated. So this is more stuff we'll go over in the final look video. Let's finish it up with tight end here. Tight end is a little bit tricky too. I don't know if there's really a standout play right now for tight end. Like last week, I was really, really high on spending up a tight end. I told you guys, I like the Waller-Kelsey pairing. There's some guys in the mid-range as well. This week, Andrews is always viable if you want to pair him with Lamar. He's been a little bit up and down, but the upside is there with him. You are going to have to pay a premium. Gesicki at 5.5 feels a little pricey. Font dealing with injury. We'll see if he's available. Hawkinson at 5.3. Again, good matchup. Targets have been solid, so yeah, I'm okay with him. Juju Smith as well has been playing a majority of the game. Is kind of having a breakout year this year. Good matchup. I think he's a solid play. Tanyan had the big, a couple weeks ago, big week there against Atlanta. Probably not going to get that again. The price would go up, so might pump the brakes there. Zach Ertz has really struggled, this year. 7, 10, 5, and 6 targets, though. The targets have been there. It's just, I think that he really needs like Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey back so teams can stop focusing on Zach Ertz. If you want to buy low on Ertz, again, it's not really the best spot, but the talent is there and the price is, pretty cheap for a guy like Zach Ertz. Ingram, I don't know. I still think he's playable here. It's a good matchup. Did only have 2 targets the last game, which is concerning, obviously. After, a guy that had like 10 targets the previous game. Hayden Hurst at 4.7. Targets have been there for him. Wasn't great last week, but this is a really good, matchup here. And if you want cheap exposure to this game, Hayden Hurst is a guy that I think is perfectly fine. Ebron is a cheaper play at 4.1. 7, 6 targets last couple of games. Cleveland struggled to defend the tight end, so I think he's playable as a cheaper guy. But yeah, that's like Logan Thomas at 3.3. What did he do last week? Still only 1 catch. He's kind of going downhill after a nice start. Yeah, there's not really a lot that stands out to me either at tight end. So tight end, like running back, I'm still, obviously going to have to make some decisions later in the week. But yeah, I think that's really it for me and tight end. So defense, again, we'll go over that more in my final look as well as the live stream. But I think that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. If you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos. You know when I go live. Again, I'll be live streaming an hour before lock on my YouTube channel, going over everything and answering any questions you guys have. So always make sure to check the live stream, guys. But thanks again. Hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you all later.